everybody, it's your pal Drew Geraci, and I got more comics to share for my spinner rack. This one I actually have never put in my spinner rack because I have to treat it gingerly. It's in magnificent shape for a 1975 Charlton book, and Charlton books are hard to come by. So isn't that wild? They used to sell advertise rings in comic books. They even did that in the 90s, I think, for a little bit, and because comic book collectors like myself, by and large, are cheap. We're not gonna. And in the early 2000s, Marvel had ads for like Buicks on the inside, and that's just not. I don't know. I don't think that was a good matchup. So, what's such a big deal about this? First of all, Wheelie and the Chopper Bunch was a popular cartoon that came out, and as I've said many times before, from the first half of the 70s. Cars and motorcycles were huge in the America's culture. There was Wheelie and the Chopper Bunch, a cartoon. Then you had Wonderbug, which was a live show, and then you had The Love Bug, which was a movie that was very successful. I saw it in the theaters a couple times. Back then, there weren't so many movies, and sometimes it'd come back around. And then you had the Chopper Bunch. You had a ton of motorcycle. You had wacky racers for the cars. You had a bunch of motorcycle things going on too, and you had Evel Knievel. You had just so many other. I'm trying to think of something else. There's even more car-related stuff, but there were so many motorcycles sold. It was like Kawasaki makes the good times roll. Kawasaki makes good times roll. See, I remember it to this day. And I've known people in my family. My dad had a Subaru, and it was a very low. It wasn't high in number. Like the higher the number was, the more muscle it had. And so he used it just to, zip down to the, stop and go or get something. And so he wasn't taking it down the highway, which was for the best. And so Wheelie and Chopper Bunch, issue 2, first appearance, first printed art professionally of a guy named here we go John Byrne. Very first, he had mentioned it in some interviews, so I had to have it, and I got this online. I'm tired. Like he didn't speak. He just leave messages, and the Chopper Bunch were just a bunch of a-holes. And it was funny because here we go. September 1975, yeah. And right after that, he would be doing Doomsday +1 for Charlton. Then he would graduate to a backup of an issue of Giant Size Dracula, which I'll have to share with you sometime. And little by little, he was fast. He was good. He had a fresh feel to his stuff. And the Chopper Bunch, basically, the episodes dealt with them trying to screw with our poor little pal, the protagonist. And I can't imagine this was hard for Byrne to do. There's only so many things you could do with those shapes to keep them on model. And what's weird is this guy, the leader, with the little pointy helmet, he kept saying, "Let's go, engines!" And I was wondering, like, they're called engines. Why are you calling them engines? I have never, ever, ever, ever heard that term said that way. So, and once in a while, watch. I see. You're going to wake them up the way they did you. So, really was a nice guy. And that's his sweetie. Oh, that's my silly dog. She's nudging the dog food bowl. Oh, demolition derbies were cool too. They came out. They were big in like the mid 50s when teenagers had spare income for the first. They had income for the first time because the war was over. And you had this whole generation of kids who, they liked motorcycles and cars and demolition derbies. If you ever see them on TV, the old clips, they're really cool. So that's our little baby dog Skittles, who's about 12 years old. She's a part Shih Tzu, part Poodle, and all attitude. And she has a routine where she knocks the dog food bowl around back and forth, and then she starts chowing down. So. And she was a rescue dog. Every dog we've ever had in the past 25 years has been a rescue dog. See, they're about to... he could also, he could turn his wheels in and kind of bounce around a little bit. But there was no real, fast and clear way to Charlton Bullseye. This was done by by fanboys, John Byrne, Roger Stern, Bob Layton, and a couple others, and they asked for Charlton's blessing to do a fanzine. They said, go for it. And there was no money involved, but, you know, you got to get established. So it's pretty much, it's written, it's very juvenile, but the imagery is so cool. I mean, it's fun. And I have memories of the cartoons, so now we go to the Avengers, annual number 11. This marks the first time, I think, that Al Milgrom came back to interiors. He had been an editor for several years. He did Firestorm right before the DC implosion around 78. He edited Hulk, Rom Space Knight, I think the Defenders, I'm not sure, and all he did was covers, and his covers were great. He did really cool covers for Rom, and he did some real exceptional covers. But I was actually excited he was doing interiors for the first time, because I got hooked on him with Captain Marvel and Guardians of the Galaxy, and that's where I think his strengths lie. When he did Spider-Man and other Earthbound characters, it just wasn't that strong, but he was a great cover designer. This cover isn't the best, but, you know, he had to get all the information out there. And you have the then current Avengers. It's not the Avengers Defenders War, but it is a sort of part 2 in a way. And you got Jack Abel in crew. And I used to love getting to get the books out on time without having a reprint or a late book. Jim Shooter would get a lot of people who worked in New York City, like Rick Magyar, Dave Simons, just all these, Maurice Severin with ink pages, and I, as an aspiring inker, I wanted a pencil, write, and ink, but I excelled at, if you pardon my being immodest, at inking. And I would love to play Spot the Inker. So Jack Abel, at this point, his stuff is very flat, but I do like he takes the rough spots out of Al Milgrom's work. Because even when there was one issue of Captain Marvel in 1976, I think it was issue 45, where Milgrom inked himself, and it looked like he was really pressed for deadline. So, and then it basically becomes like one team is told, actually it's very much like the Avengers Defenders War, where one team is told the other team is evil or possessed or something like that. So, and it's really cool. So, oh my god. And there's a female version of Nebulon. I love this spread. And like I said, it's the inks are very tin-y, like tin. And it could be a little more beef up in the foreground. But I was just excited to see Milgrom, back on a team book again. Iron Man drumming his fingers. Drummity drum. So, you see what I'm saying. But, here comes the Defenders with a whole different lineup, which I really like that a lot. I did miss the Beast, though, in the Avengers. He was so much a part of the Avengers in my years of collecting comics. And there's Wasp and more of a crappy outfits. I don't know who designed it. Valkyrie. Beautiful, beautiful. What happened is she had inhabited the body of Barbara Norris, but there was a recent issue where she got shot and killed, and Barbara Norris is the one who got killed, but not Valkyrie. Valkyrie. She basically says, I am at long last the true Valkyrie. What more needs to be said? And Gargoyle is great. And they're kind of hoodwinked. Like they're fighting each other. Let's get to it. Let's watch. Oh, Silver Surfer comes up. Wait, where did I skip a page? Oh. It don't matter. I'll show every page anyway. And that's nice. It's fun for all. And I love Valkyrie is stronger now that she is, just one person instead of two. Beast versus Cap is great with the agility department. Iron Man, Silver Surfer are great. The Wasp and Gargoyle, it's just ridiculous. I just thought it was odd. And I love the Wasp. I do. So, I love this. channeling some of that Kirby crackle. I don't know. Maybe he might have inked his own page there, because that's very Kirby-ish. Iron Man take on Silver Surfer. He siphoned some of the power, just like Doctor Doom did back in Fantastic Four or whatever issue. Slam. And I love that. I mean, in the 80s, Iron Man finally got to be a kick-ass hero. He was, when Babyface Bob Layton, David Mazzucchelli, and John Romita Jr. and others came along, I was like, at last, my favorite hero is getting justified. So, that's a very Milgram finger there, and I love it. It's kind of Ditko. You know, he what he does is loose. Here we go. Avengers Charter from first issue, Hulk. And Hulk's actually doing it in cursive. I'm kind of shocked he didn't just do block letters. So, yeah, this is probably a Grunwald thing. Mark Grunwald was a major... the bylaws may be amended. They sure will by a second issue. But all Avengers shall at the time endeavor to adhere to principles of Avengers Charter and the rules and blah, blah, blah. Membership. Meetings. Section 4, punishment of criminals. Affiliations, security, discorporation. And I don't know if that was ever referred to again, but that was kind of planting the seeds for the Marvel Universe book, the 12-issue amazing book that came out that described everything. Now, I skipped this book when it first came out because this came out in 1989 or 90. There was so much Wolverine product out there. It was ridiculous. I was sick of Wolverine. I was sick of it. It sold, but they just kept doing these one-shots. This is like Dark Knight Returns format, square-bound. But I saw it in the dollar bin. Actually, it was $2. And Walt Simonson's a great writer. And Bob Wycheck's inking Mignola. And I've said this a million times. I like when he had more of an organic style with an inker as opposed to hard graphics. That's a very Frazetta kind of image there. So it is really nice colors too. I love the colors. A lot of brown. And you don't see a lot of brown in comical books. So it's like the color is even helping to tell the story. Here are the colors. Mark Chiarella. He went on to become what he was. He went on to be like the. He wanted to be art director. Yes, that is it for DC. And so much exciting stuff going on. Crappy printing there. It's supposed to be all black. So they were still working things out. There's Apocalypse. The Age of Apocalypse. The Age of Apocalypse. So really, really enjoyed this. Now that it's 40 years away and I can enjoy Wolverine. So Infinity Inc. Oh, I know that doesn't sound good. I know. Well, the art is great. Roy Thomas, big Earth 2 fan. Mike Gustovich, he's done a million things. He's done indie stuff. He's done Marvel, DC. He's everywhere. And he's a real strong draftsman. I love this cover. It kind of grabbed me. I got this out of the dollar bin. And what I noticed was, who did this? Oh, Edward Barreto, inked by Gustovich. It has Wildcat, the female Wildcat, who came from Crisis on Infinite Earths when the original Wildcat, his legs got crippled by falling debris. So we have the new Teen Titans guest starring, and this is another new Infinity Inc. Character who's kind of fun. But here's the thing: Crisis on Infinite Earths, I can talk. It basically punctured the balloon that was Earth 2 and all the things that Roy Thomas had established, the things he loved about Earth 2. They took all the Earths and made them one, and both Infinity Inc. and All-Star Squadron, Roy and his wife Dan were just, they were trying so hard to deal with the aftermath of that, and that's sort of what killed the book after a while. And this book was really hard to read. I read it actually, but You know, and Gustovich is doing a great job. But what he doesn't have a lot to. The story's just not that riveting, and it's funny because it's not a Crisis on Infinite Earths crossover, but it looked a lot like it because they had one, you know, about a year prior, or less than a year. There's the Ultra Humanites. There's Obsidian, who would one day become a member of Justice League of America when I was starting on the book. My first issue was 103, and I love that character. I'd love to see him in the regular JLA. And, you know, yada, 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 dot, dot, yada, 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 dot, dot. I like the colors and the visual. It looks almost crystalline. She's the daughter of Green Lantern from Earth 2. But it's just that I feel looking at this, I'm reading it, and there is a good... Gustovich is trying to make this story exciting. And I know, I guarantee Roy is still royally ticked off about losing Earth 2. So the book just is kind of there. And although there was one thing I thought that was kind of neat. Hold on. I can't remember what it was. A hardened criminal, his brain transplanted inside a movie goddess. Oh, I don't know what that one. Oh, he is a child again. Ultra remembers he's had several lives. A scientist threatening the city with purple plague. So he's dealing with all his past sins. Now that I like a lot. That's a really strong page. But it's just that reading this, I just had the feeling it didn't matter. Because, you know, it just was... That Crisis on Infinite Earths, let me tell you something. Let me tell you something about that, buddy. Okay, Squadron Supreme, one of my favorite miniseries of all time, or maxi series. It was 12 issues. It was Mark Gruenwald basically doing his version of the Justice League, and it really, really amazing. He came up with so many other characters, so many composite characters, villains, and ones that characters that were like each other. Basically, it was like Justice League. I said that already. This came out a couple years after Mark Gruenwald passed, very young, 1996. The cover's kind of... so, what's his name? Hyperion's like, are we having a killer time? Yeah, he has that Napoleon Dynamite face. And I think is this the same image? Because that's a lot more shadowy than... No. It's just a lot more shadows going on there. Are you guys having a killer time? Now this is by Len Kaminsky, who, his Iron Man is really good. He did about 2 years on Iron Man, but the misfortune of his being on the book was it will always be remembered as the War Machine years, because you know, they threw a ton of guns on Iron Man when they had done it with so many other characters. So it's been dismissed, but I would suggest buying them and reading them. Who knows when an epic will come out of it. Anthony Williams, I've sort of seen his name in and out. I think he did Daredevil in the mid-90s in Andy Lanning. He's been around. He's a great inker. Andy co-writes a lot of the stuff from Guardians of the Galaxy, that the second version that ended up in the movies. So this is 1997, I think, or 98. And it deals with the aftermath of a project where Squadron Supreme was going to take over the Earth, make everything, like, use their powers basically to fix all the ills in the world, and it all failed. And Gruenwald had just such a brilliant way about it, and it was a 12-issue series, and then it went into a graphic novel. Now this is, you know, they finally get back to their own world, they were in a dimension. And then there is these, we are the law, very Judge Dredd. The Blue Eagles. Now, Blue Eagle was Hawkman, the Squadron version of Hawkman. He was very, like, a straight-laced guy. Kind of like how Hawkman was treated in Justice League International with James DeMatteis, Keith Giffen, and Maguire. So these are, you know, they follow his path. Some of these panels are very wonky, and it does continue, and it's got some really cool stuff. This guy's neat, but you know, they shouldn't have used Doctor Strange colors. Baba boom. So it's got some really interesting stuff, but that is something that wonderful. And I like the color. It's like a rust color. Very uncommon. It's Mysterium. And even that's some great design going on there. Really, really imaginative stuff. And they show up, and Nighthawk is there. And Nighthawk is supposed to be dead. He was killed in issue 12 of the miniseries. So they're like, was ist das? And so there's they basically hold the Squadron Supreme's family hostage until they work things out. That's an interesting panel. I like that. Here's where it gets kind of blah, 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 blah. And I don't like that Hyperion pose. It's just very odd. It's just very, I don't know, trying to be too clever, I guess. And it turns out this is the son of Nighthawk. He actually is the biological son of a villain of Nighthawk who died in battle with Nighthawk. And Nighthawk felt guilty, adopted him as his ward, and he grew up. But here's the thing. This was never mentioned in the Squadron Supreme miniseries or maxi series or any time, any decade. So this really, I had to stop and I had to think real hard because I've memorized the Squadron Supreme miniseries and the graphic novel, and there was never any before Nighthawk. Nighthawk died. There was no mention of any kid. There was no inkling. There was no hint. It wasn't even like the vaguest foreshadowing. So that took me out of the book a little bit. There's Dr. Spectrum meets Skymax, and he's essentially, it's great. He's a Skrull, but he is a replica of DC's Martian Manhunter, and that's great. That is genius. I think maybe Grunwald did that. I'm not certain. Now, you can sort of tell the deadlines are coming because it's getting kind of, boy, do I hate that. I get that, but that does not belong in the middle of the page. It's such a poorly laid out. This should have been at the top. This should have been an inset or something, or this could have been on top of this panel, like right above Spectrum's head. But that is a horrible design choice, and I apologize to Anthony Williams, but that's just, I'm saying that more for the aspiring artists. Great Plains. I think they're all photo stats, which is the way to do it. Why draw all those planes? And yada yada yada. I mean, Grunwald did a lot of yada yada, but every word was actually important. So now they form a new Squadron Supreme. For Mark Grunwald, storyteller, trickster, teacher, friend. And it's just okay. If I were to do a 1 to 10, I would say this was a 5, actually. Nice art and stuff, but that's it. So, this show is sponsored by me. I do commissions. This was a sketch I did on a backer board of a normal size comic for a convention. And it was all marker. I freehanded that. I've got a natural curve, which you have to establish. And there's Storm. That was so fun. Oh my gosh. So much fun. Absolute Carnage, sketch cover. I like doing him. He's all slimy and stuff. Cover recreations, baby. Look at that. Tell me it doesn't look like Herb Trimby. I really worked that. And I liked doing these because I learn a little something from different artists. Okay, Drew, stop that. You sound like a dick. Okay, then there was this Kirby Spider-Man cover I recreated. Oh, man. Now this is something I did a little different. I did the cover, but I made the light source the Cosmic Cube. Cap had the usual black over his A, and I decided to make the shade really dark underneath. The shield is even on there, and that wasn't on the original. And that's not a bad thing. It's just I wanted to kind of Give it a little more of a twist. Strange Adventures. That's a, I don't know if who did that cover or not, if that was Carmen Infantino or whoever. With the first issue of Dead Man, this was not a cover creation, but it is, but not without with no trade dress, no words, no anything. Originally done by Ron Wilson. I love doing that. That was so fun. So, Devil Dinosaur. This, again, I screwed around with it. I took the cover and I smashed the Devil Dinosaur logo, which was not done in the original. And if you decide to get a cover recreation, then I won't screw with it, unless you say something. And here's Gene Colan, which again was great. It's like I'm learning on each cover of different artists I learned. That's me trying to do my Barry Windsor Smith. That's Dick Giordano sketch from the late 90s, which I was asked to ink over Lightbox. And wait, that was so much fun. So much fun. So my email address is, here, I'll give it to you. La 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 la. Whoop. Such a slob. See? Comics at gmail.com. Okay, well, yeah, if you want to contact me for any, I negotiate prices. I'm very reasonable, and I love doing cover recreations. They're a lot of fun. So give me a holler there if you want anything. Done, Marvel, DC, anything. That's about it. And thanks for hanging out for this commercial. Wishing you the very best. Talk to you later.